let me just start by welcoming you to what I think is going to be a wonderful conversation, Michael. I first came across your work when I read Still Grazing, and I was also fascinated by the fact that you first came to South Africa in the late 80s, working for Ebony. And just take us back to how was it like reporting what was really the end of apartheid, but coming from outside?
Boy, do I remember that, because those were the days when I could not obviously get a visa to come here. I used to go, I was in the Washington Bureau of Ebony, and I would go to the Mozambique embassy and get a ticket on through to Maputo, but of course you had to make a stop here. And it was not, like now, 4, 5, 6 hours at the airport. It was overnight. And so you would get the transit visa that allowed you to go in the city or go, into town, the hotel, and you're supposed to come back to the airport the next day and catch your flight and go on to Maputo. But what I always did was I would, get into Joburg and then, of course, tear up the Mozambique portion of the ticket, and I was here, and I would, come, and just explore on my own. I wanted to see what it was like in the late 80s. And what do you do? Any good journalist, what do? You seek out people to help you. And what I would do is, if there was a busboy or a porter at a hotel, I would strike up a conversation with him. And next thing you know, I'm in a Baki on my way to Soweto, in their home, meeting them, talking to them, walking up and down the streets of Johannesburg. Used to stay at the Carlton Hotel back in those days.
Right, in the inner city.
In the inner city. I wanted to see it, up close and personal. I didn't want to see what was going on necessarily through the eyes of the New York Times, Time Magazine, Newsweek, ABC, NBC, CBS, the major broadcasters back in the States. I wanted to see it. These early trips here were also not necessarily assignments. I would take my vacation. I would take out a loan from a credit union, and I would buy my ticket and come. That's what I wanted to do, and that's how I got to know South Africa in the late 80s. Later on, it was through assignments. Jesse Jackson came through Africa, Southern Africa, I believe 86, 87, 88, somewhere along there, on some humanitarian type missions and exploratory missions. And I was a part of that press corps, and then I was, of course, here in February 1990 when Mandela was released, and so forth and so on. And then I did my PhD at Howard, and of course my dissertation looked at the political, economic situation here in Southern Africa, and especially here in South Africa. And so that brought me back here. I got a Fulbright to Wits and to the University of Western Cape. I divided my time between those two. And so I always found a way to come back here.
And Hugh Masekela has spoken about something that he calls home is where the music is. And you've worked together with Masekela, not just on Still Grazing, but also over an extended period of time where you've watched him in action, but you've also come back to the place that he calls home, right, where he always wanted to come back. Mm-hmm. Even at the height of his success, you get the sense that here is a man that saw his success as a way of coming back to South Africa. How important is this idea of home, this spirit of place, to artists like Masekela and perhaps even yourself, of this place that you return to? Because I get this sense that South Africa is more than an assignment for you. It's a place that draws you in.
Right. Well, I'm back here now. Again, not on assignment, but continuing my research, working on yet another book on Masekela. Hopefully it'll come out in 2014. In my years of working with Bro Hugh in the States, I first met him when I was an intern photographer at Jet Magazine back in 1978, and he was playing at the Park West Hotel on the north side of Chicago. He was touring at that time with Herb Alpert. They had just released their album. That's the first time I met him. I can tell you, I know exactly where I was when I first heard Grazing in the Grass in 1968. I remember playing that record so much. My mother said, if you play it one more time, but it was something about the music that just captivated me. And then from that, it went on to other, world music, African music, so forth and so on. But working with Bro Hugh over the years, home was always important. Those years where he was abroad in the United States, to a lesser degree Europe, but also, as you know, living and working in other parts of Africa, Liberia, Nigeria, and so forth. It was always that desire to come back here and make the contribution. This is home. Who can forget that picture by Alpha Kamalo? What was it, 1960? I believe, not too long after Sharpeville. That picture of him getting on the plane, leaving, unceremoniously having to leave. But again, if it wasn't for Trevor Huddleston and so forth and so on, to have gotten him this opportunity to study music abroad, who knows what would how he would have turned out. But coming home has always been a big part. And we were just talking the other day, he's been back 22 years now. And came back in 1990. It's very important to make the contribution, to continue to make the contribution, to continue to tell the African stories. And in this case, through music. And as you well know, Bro Hugh is branching out in other things. He's written a novel, he has other interests, but it's always going to be in the genre of arts and culture.